All right, I think we are live. Maybe? All right. Now it's looking live. I hope you can all hear me. Welcome to what for now I'm calling Everyone's an Expert because everyone on the internet knows everything. Um, if you have something you want to talk about, feel free to let me know. Are we getting good audio? All right, fantastic. I have my lovely bride with me. I don't think we can see her hand, but she is getting things kicked off for us, make sure the audio is working this week. But if there's something you guys want to talk about, just let me know. Um, hey, Todd, thanks for signing on. Um, what I wanted to talk about was, at least at first, was the GM announcement about the Bolt, and there were a lot of people going back and forth about, um, it's good that we have a low cost EV, and people shouldn't complain about some of its shortcomings because, um, it's good that we have low cost EVs. And I agree with that. I think the old Bolt was a pretty good. Thank you. The old Bolt was a pretty good EV, and the people who own it seem to really like it. But um, when they did the refresh, something that stuck out to me was that the EV or the charge rate didn't get increased. And a lot of people were saying, yeah, that's not that great, but look at how good it is in all these other ways, all the other bells and whistles that they did include. And that's great. But when I'm thinking of a person trying to road trip in it, and maybe someone is in a lower income and that's why they chose to buy that car, someone in a lower income is not going to have the time to take a long leisurely trip, a long leisurely road trip, and maybe can't afford to fly. So, of all the nice things they have built into it, if I'm that person, I want the fastest charging, and maybe I don't need the other bells and whistles because I want to get where I'm going. I can't afford to take another day off work to add to my trip, and so that's really my only thing I thought was interesting with that is, um, I guess the choices people made of what to include and what not to include, and what's value to their target customer. So I don't know if you had any thoughts on that, but if you do, let me know. Um, the other thing I've been seeing a lot about the Ionic coming out this week, and that looks, well, frankly, I think it looks terrible, but style is a very subjective thing. It sounds like it's going to have some cool features, charge pretty fast, and everything I heard about, the Kona and the e-Niro uh, were great. I know they're going through a battery recall right now, but I feel like that's a one-time thing and probably won't be, something that continues to hamper them down the road. So I think it's probably going to be a great vehicle, but for me, even growing up in the 80s, I never liked the 80s boxy style. And the Ionic kind of takes that and runs with it. Um, and so, style wise, I don't think it's great. At least on the outside, it's fine on the inside, but um, it's just really interesting. People seem to really think it's a cool design, and I've never really liked the boxy headlights or the boxy front or back. There's that little Honda thing that's selling in Europe that's kind of cute, but it kind of the front end kind of looks like a Game Boy almost. Um, but that's not a big like normal sized car. That's kind of a small Honda City car, and um, the quirkiness, I think, works for it. But I've just always preferred the more rounded, sculpted um, shapes of vehicles, and so I'm not I'm not sure if it's just nostalgia, but people seem to really like the boxiness. But that's a very subjective thing. So, um, just checking the chat here. Um, the other thing I wanted to talk a little bit about was the different bills and rules that are going through the various levels of government right now. And I think it's pretty interesting. Um, we had I think I have my note right here. Um, I do. I wonder if other people go in and out of in and off, or on and off their sets when they're doing live streams. Probably not, but that's what you get. That's because I'm such an expert at this. Um, but the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency is doing a rulemaking process to adopt the clean car standards from California. And I listened to both days of oral testimony, testified myself, and it was really, really interesting. On day one, they had 5 people arguing against it and 36 for. Day 2, they had 4 people arguing against it and 28 for. So total, now this is oral arguments. People can comment, I think, until March 15th, maybe. So if you want to, you can submit a written testimony or pro or con argument and submit that. I'll put a link in the description after this is over. But so total on those calls, there were 9 voices against and 64 for. And what I thought was really fascinating was the people against it. I mean, you have, some of the usual suspects of the, Center for American Experiment, the Auto Dealers Association. Someone called in from Michigan. I can't remember who they were with, but they were incredibly arrogant. And I, just put a pretty sour, like everybody else was pretty respectful, agree or disagree. But this person was just like, you almost picture like a Snidely Whiplash kind of twirling their mustache as you need to listen to me, and it wasn't quite like that. So, but what really struck me was that everybody who was for it, I think every single person who was for it was an EV owner. And then you have people testifying against it, saying, basically telling them what EVs are like. And it goes from someone with experience to someone with an anecdote of something they heard, or our research shows this or that. And I know, like, obviously some of the industry groups will be affected. The manufacturers will be affected and dealerships will be affected. But if everybody's going to EV anyway, the dealerships are going to have to go along for the ride, like it or not. Maybe there's an incentive or something that should be in place to help them, but I'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, it kind of goes with the theme of what I titled this again, is everyone's an expert. People with absolutely no experience driving an EV, charging an EV, understanding what that dynamic is like, saying, no, we know, and it's this way, and it costs money this way, and it's hurting other taxpayers this way or that way, and um, just a lot of misinformation um, that just kind of we see recycled over and over again. Um, interestingly, excuse me. Interestingly, there are some other things going on in the state where they're trying to. One senator is trying to raise the EV. Um, when EVs are registered in Minnesota, right now there's a $75 fee that's added every year. And most people feel like that's pretty fair, give or take a little bit. That's in the range of what's fair, um, for a few different reasons. But um, they want to raise that to 230, I believe, or $229, something like that. Um, which everybody in the EV space is pretty much saying that's pretty excessive. But of course, the people arguing this in the Senate Budget Committee or Transportation Committee, I can't remember which it was, but they're all saying, well, an EV driver does this, or anecdotally, we've heard, somebody, I think the guy who wrote the bill um, was saying, well, they know someone who went from an SUV to a plug-in hybrid, and that's about the amount they saved that would have been the tax. Well, that's a incredibly uh, cherry-picked number that they're going with. And I think another thing that they don't quite understand is that there are a lot of EV owners. I mean, obviously the people with the Teslas, the Bolts, the Konas or Neros that have the long range, that might be their primary vehicle. But there are a whole lot of Nissan Leafs, the old ones that get 50 miles to 50 miles to a charge. And so for those families, chances are that's their in-town vehicle. And when they do their long trips or whatever, they have another gas car, most likely. So for that person who owns a 50-mile range EV that drives around in town, then pays gas tax for all of their long trips, it seems really burdensome to have a $230 charge every year because it's an EV. And so maybe there needs to be something worked out. I don't know what the best formula is. Maybe it's a combination of weight and miles driven. Um, smarter people than me. I'm not an expert. Smarter people than me might be able to figure out what the right formula is, but there's got to be a better way than, it's like charging someone who drives a Toyota Yaris the same in gas tax as you would, Lincoln Navigator. They aren't going to spend the same amount, even if they drive the same amount of miles a year. So there's that going on. And then there's another bill that's going through Minnesota right now that I believe EV enthusiasts and the dealership association, I think, is on board with this one. One of the dealerships' concerns about the pollution control thing, the Clean Cars Minnesota, is that it's a rule being imposed. And what they would rather see is incentives to try to help them sell these off the lot. They're concerned they aren't going to be able to sell the EVs they need to. So they're saying what we really want is the state to offer an incentive and not do clean cars. Other people are saying, well, you can't do clean cars unless you also do incentives and more charging infrastructure. Therefore, you shouldn't do clean cars because you're not doing this other stuff. Well, there is a bill going through. I don't know if it's been introduced or at what stage, but it was discussed in one of the committee hearings I was listening to, was sponsored by EV enthusiasts and the dealership, and that was to give some sort of incentive. And I think it had some bolstering the charging network um, money in there too. So on one hand, you have the dealer association saying, no, we don't want clean cars, but we want incentives because they know the manufacturers are going to be sending them EVs anyway. Uh, and so it's just kind of interesting that these things could go hand in hand, but then at the same time, someone's saying, well, no, we need to charge EVs more and take those, basically retract those incentives. Um, so it's just kind of a jumble going on in Minnesota right now. And we're trying to find out what the best way to go forward and talk to the senators, and Congress people, and um, testify and share our experiences. But it's a pretty interesting time. And then at the federal level, I think it might be part of the package, the coronavirus package. I can't remember what it's called, uh, but the big package that's going through it was just passed by the House last night and going to the Senate now. I believe within that bill there is an extension of the $7,000 tax rebate for buying an EV. And so it'll be really interesting to see if that happens as well. And we'll see. But there's a lot going on and a lot to follow. And we'll see if we go all in on incentives and really try to make this thing happen, or if we're going to do some incentives and some retractions. Just depends on what gets through what committee and what finally gets passed. But I see, Todd, you had a comment a couple minutes ago, but I had to get my brain dump out there first. Yeah, the new fee would be equal to 65,000 miles a year at a 98 mile per gallon equivalent average. So that would be a pretty typical EV um, uh, gas mile equivalent. Some are higher, some would be lower, but um, I drive a lot of miles, and I haven't put I haven't even put 65,000 on in almost 2.5 years, and that's I do drive a lot, so it's a little outrageous, and um, I think everybody in the EV space is happy to pay, to upkeep roads and bridges, all that's important. Excuse me. Um, the the other thing that gets brought up a lot in these conversations about what should be paid is, EVs weigh more, and that's true. But again, 2012 Nissan Leaf does not weigh the same as the Cybertruck will, or the Hummer EV will. So there's a little apples and oranges going on there, and um, I think another thing that isn't factored in is that every gallon of gas you put in a standard car has to be trucked there. And so your Toyota Yaris might not weigh anything, but if you drive a lot, you're using a lot of gas that's being trucked to the different gas stations around the state. And those trucks weigh a lot. Now they're paying, I'm sure, some sort of gas tax in theirs too, but when you're talking about weight, I feel like that should be factored in. Also, well, for the most part, well, the power you get from electricity does not have to be trucked. Even on coal power plants, that's coming in by rail, and I don't think gets I don't think rail gets any help from the gas tax. So, um, the 98 miles per gallon equivalent is the average for a Tesla Model S, which, yeah, that probably makes sense. Speaking of Tesla Model S, little update on my car. I was pulling out of the driveway the other day, must have been Thursday night, and as I kind of cranked the wheel to make the turn into the street, something very bad happened. Um, the front passenger tire uh, kind of lodged itself in the wheel well a little bit, and so as I'd reverse, I could feel like the body riding on the tire, and then I'd put it in forward, and it would kind of rise up with it. It was pretty alarming. Happened all of a sudden, and we had been driving on the highway and stuff earlier, um, early in the day. So obviously, I'm glad it didn't happen then. But yeah, it was pretty undrivable. I was able to get it to the side of the road in front of our house, and just this morning had it towed up to Tesla. Now, I on one hand I hate to mention any problem that happens with the car because people are so hyper focused about Tesla and service, and there's a some sort of issue, but the car has 100 and almost 18,000 miles on it, and with Minnesota potholes, this summer I was driving it around in Montana in farm fields. That those wheels and that system has taken a big beating, and in a vehicle with that many miles on it and a lot of hard miles on it, stuff like that just happens. I've had lots of older cars in the past, and at some point with roads the way we have them, why I'm happy to pay road tax. But with stuff like that just happens on cars of this age. So I'm not feeling like this is a major Tesla issue or anything like that, but it's kind of making me think we might jumpstart our conversation about switching to the Model Y. Um, I don't mind putting more money into this car, but um, we'll see. We're talking about it. The Model Y was the plan for this spring anyway, and just as I was cleaning it out to send it up to the service center, I thought, oh, maybe now is the time. It seems like the Model Ys that are rolling off the line right now are really looking good, and some of those early issues with the start of production seem to have been worked out. So we were up at the Eden Prairie Service Center and saw a handful, and I didn't look too closely because I was talking to people, but they look good, and we'll see if it's time to do the change pretty soon. But that's for another time. Todd, looks like you're the only one here, at least the only one in the chat. Is there anything you've got going on, or you want to talk about? LOL. Oh, Tyler's here too. Cool. Oh, and Quake is too. Glad you guys got home safely. It was good to see you the other day. Joan had a blast. We met them up at the Mall of America. That was actually we were on the highway coming back from the mall. And then the next time I took the car out is when we had the wheel issue. So I'm glad it didn't happen at the mall, and I'm glad it didn't happen on the highway, because that would have been unpleasant for sure. Taylor, are you feeling any better? I'm glad your Subaru is still hanging together. That's good. I've heard those are tough. I've never owned one, but I've always heard good things. Oh, well, Tyler, I hope your back is feeling better soon. That's rough. I've had some back issues in the past, and yeah, if you can hardly move and it's hard to breathe, that is awful. So I hope you're doing better soon. Oh well, if you've got a cat on your lap, then what more could you really ask for? Well, I appreciate you guys all coming and hanging out tonight. And I know this is still a little rough around the edges. I'm still trying to figure out how to do these, but I figured Saturday night's a good time to give it a whirl and see how it goes, and talk about some stuff that, I don't really like making videos about, the breaking news kind of stuff. There are so many channels that, are doing that kind of stuff that I feel like they do it really well, and I kind of do videos on whatever's going on or a trip I'm doing or something like that. So, but still, I had a couple thoughts about the GM thing and the Ionic. And do you guys like the look of the Ionic? I might just be way out in left field. So I don't know. Nobody's racing to the defense of the look of the Ionic, but stats wise and everything, I don't know if we know full range numbers on the Ionic, but I mean, it seems like it's going to be a nice vehicle. And I've owned Hyundais before, and I really liked driving it. Not the EVs, but I feel like they make pretty good cars now, and I've heard good reviews of their EVs. Oh, price is still high. Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I don't know if I know it off the top of my head, but it's going to be interesting to see what the landscape is when it comes out. I was talking to a friend yesterday morning, and they're trying to decide between a Model Y and an ID4. And to me, I would get the Model Y. Obviously, that's what we're getting, but I kind of hope he gets the ID4 so I can check it out. But we'll see what and I think they're going to try to do test drives this summer and see which one they like. Yeah, I think it does have some pretty fast DC fast charging. 350 might be the rate. See it in person, it's the best. Which one are you talking about, Todd? Ooh, 60,000 for the Ionic. Yeah, it does seem a little high, but we'll see where things lie. Oh yeah, both of them. Yeah, it'll be good to see. I can't wait to see all the new things that are coming out this year. And I did that video last fall, with a couple friends of mine who have the ID3, and people really seemed to like that video and found it helpful. So I'd like to do more with other vehicles. Um, maybe someone who's had an old Leaf and now has a new Leaf, or um, you know, uh, maybe someone who's got a Bolt. Um, See how they're liking it. I don't know if anybody in particular has one of those. Uh, I think you guys are still really liking it, aren't you, Tyler? Oh, 45's better for the Ionic. Yeah. Hopefully that's hopefully that's the case. Well, Volt or the Bolt. Maybe the comparison between the two. There you go. You, I know you guys liked being on camera for the Model Y event, so maybe I have to make. Well, I don't have a car. We'll see what happens with my car first, and then maybe I can drive up there and interview you guys about that. Yeah. Um, that's another funny thing as they're doing these hearings and people are testifying, making sure everybody like articulates, are you talking about the Bolt or the Volt, a V or a B? Because everything's, everything's being recorded by the court reporter. And so it's, can you please specify which vehicle you're talking about? Um, yeah. Yeah, I'd like to do more of those, especially as the new vehicles come out. And um, we don't have. I was just watching another channel that I like to watch all the YouTube channels about EVs, and it seems like a lot of people I follow just dropped everything and suddenly bought a Mustang Mach E, and I think that's going to be a great car. Just I've seen it in person on the outside, and I'd love to do a test drive, but I, I'm not at the point in life where I can just buy every new EV that comes out for a couple months and then trade it in and do something new. So, uh, like, I want to check that stuff out, but really, I want to talk to owners who've had the different vehicles for a while, because you really, you know, get a sense of the pros and the cons, and even I love Tesla. I think a lot of us do, but they're not perfect. Stuff happens, and talking to someone who's lived with it for a while, you get a much better sense of, is this something I could live with, or maybe wait for the next thing, or whatever, compare and contrast. But I'm going to see if I can at least test drive a Mach-E in the next few weeks and get a better in-person handle on it. The Volt feels clunky. That's interesting. I always thought they seemed really sporty, but I guess I've never driven one. And maybe it's sporty compared to a regular gas car, but not to an EV, a full EV. Yeah, the Model 2 or whatever that's going to be is going to be an interesting. Um, I think, well, like most of the stuff they build, they can't make enough of them. But if they get a $25,000 Tesla in the next few years, and that EV credit goes through where it's 7,000 off for the next 10 years, that's going to be a no-brainer. Everybody's going to buy one of those. Yeah, I kind of thought that too about the naming. That seems like Volt is more uh, would have been kind of a cool EV. In fact, originally I thought the Volt was all electric, so that was years ago. Todd, are you in the Maki group on Facebook? Are you in there trolling them? Yeah, Volt, Bolt, Spark. Make up your mind. What are you making? Todd's in all the other EV groups, just trolling. I did see. I can't remember. I think it's a Ford exec or somebody that's on Twitter that. Excuse me. Um, there's a Ford exec or somebody who's been driving around a Mach-E and showing it off, and it's good promotional stuff. But he's kind of made a few jabs at Tesla, and I'm like, why not just say our car is great? We don't necessarily need the jabs back and forth, but sorry, I hope that was muting when I did that. Uh, yeah, see what their experience is. Huh, interesting. I guess it kind of makes sense that there's Tesla. Excuse me. I apologize. It's very dry in here. And after talking for a while, everything just dries out. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how sharing chargers goes as more EVs roll off the line. But hopefully, it seems like in the Minnesota EV owners group, there's a couple people who are posting like new chargers are opening up here, new chargers are opening up here all the time, and I don't know if those are level twos, so maybe it's not that big of a deal, but I feel like the infrastructure is really growing. Oh, Brandon pissed off the Minnesota EV group. I can see that he's got strong opinions on the Leaf. Oh man, quick! You're in a lot of the groups. I forgot you owned a Volt. Yeah, it seems a lot of like the. I can't remember who it is. Maybe Bill Genn is the name that's coming to mind, but it seems like every couple days he's like, "Yeah, just open the new chargers in some small town I've never heard of," and a couple days later, just open the new chargers here, and I haven't checked PlugShare in a while, but Um, it seems like a lot are going in. So if are Chatamos technically level 2 if they're 50 kilowatts? Or is that considered DC fast charging? Just not that fast? Oh, it is, Bill. Okay. Because I guess I always think of Chatamo as, I guess, like it's faster than a J1772, but not like supercharger fast. Is that correct, or do I have that? Um, do I have that mixed up? Oh, okay. Level 3 fast. Okay. And the Bolt maxes out at 50 kilowatts, right? Or is that is that accurate? Is the is the Bolt charging slow because of the cold or because of the max charge rate? I know so very little about the Bolt. That's another one I've never test driven a Bolt. I saw it at fully charged last night. Oh, 55 peak. Okay. And you guys are parking in outside too, right? So the cold is really tough. Does it still fully charge overnight? Oh, so as long as you're home and can charge at home, um, it's okay. And if you like it, then you know, like I said, no car is perfect. So if you like it and can live with its idiosyncrasies most of the time, it's probably fine. Well, I'm glad it's the best winter car you've had. Yeah, having that low center of gravity thing is so underrated. Um, just and the way EVs distribute power is just yeah. Our Model S is a tank in the snow, even with all season tires. I think with the Y, we'll probably end up switching to um, winter tires just because we do want to keep the car for so long, and we'll just swap them out every winter. Well, thank you guys again. I really appreciate you hanging out and sharing your info and stuff. Um, I am getting quite a frog in my throat, and so rather than keep muting all the time, uh, I think I'm going to sign off. But I hope you guys all have a great night, and I really appreciate you coming and hanging out. This was fun, and last time I was so nervous about doing a live stream. I just kind of stream of consciousness went through all the stuff I wanted to, like, I got to have all these things to talk about. and a couple of you guys were in the chat, and I'm like, I finished. I'm like, I hardly even like acknowledge them or talk to them, and you guys took the time to be here, and it's late on a Saturday night, so late for quarantine times anyway on a Saturday night. So I do appreciate you guys hanging out, um, and yeah, I'll talk to you all soon. Hopefully, we can maybe in the summer when we're all vaccinated and everything's back to some sort of normal, we can do a live stream or do a group live stream, which would be kind of cool. Um, at a hangout place or at a like after a Tesla owners meeting or something like that. Or but we'll see. We'll see how the summer goes. Hopefully things get back in order. But you guys all have a great night, and I really appreciate you jumping on tonight. So I'll talk to you later. Have a great one. Thanks a lot. And now the awkward couple moments while I grab the mouse and end the stream. Thanks, guys. Good night. And not yet. Now. Bye.